Introduction to Sport and Exercise Psychology by Chloe Barker and Emily Shade. Case study. Since Pat has started to play football, he has only ever wanted to be the best he could be. Now, as a teenager, Pat had once again been selected for the national football squad for his age group. He had been chosen for the squad over the last few years and excelled in his training. However, when it came to the actual game, he would often fail to impress the coaches, as he would become so nervous and would find his whole game would suffer. Pat often found himself substituted. We hoped this would be the year when he could control his nerves and show everyone that what he was capable of. Psychological approach. The first approach linked to the case study is behavioural. There were many psychologists such as Watson, Pavlov, Thorndike and Skinner that believed that the environment and the observational behaviour played a role in people's behaviour. However, as behaviourism has developed, it now takes in consideration emotions, actions, social, physical environment and the interaction of cognition. The main part of behavioural approach is behaviour, and that it could be learned from experiences and unlearned. Therefore, from Pat's point of view, when he joins up the national team, he excels in his training as he is comfortable. However, when it comes to a game situation, he becomes nervous and these feelings bring on a behaviour that affects his performance. The environment can also be affecting his behaviour, as at training sessions there isn't a crowd, so there is less pressure, whereas in a game there are cameras, a crowd and the pressure of playing well for your national team. This could mean that Pat's performance suffers due to the game situation being too much for him to handle. The second approach related to the case study is cognitive. Both the behavioural and cognitive approaches are linked together during treatment as they are compatible. The cognitive approach is used to understand people's behaviour and feelings through their thought patterns and mental habits. They do this through the person's mental processes, attention, attributions, memory, perceptions and cognitive patterns. It is thought that this is when we were born. We use our senses to use the information we collect from our environment. Once we have done this, we process that information associated with meanings. This relates back to the case study, as Pat has memories of his past performances, so when he is in the same situation he gets nervous feelings. This causes him to remember how he performed last time and show everyone what he's capable of. Psychological concepts and theories. This also links to the next theory, which is anxiety. Anxiety disorder is the excessive or aroused state characterised by such feelings of apprehension, uncertainty or fear. There are two types of anxiety that are linked to sport performance. These are state and trait anxiety. A man called Spielberg came up with these different theories. State anxiety is where an unpleasant emotional arousal occurs in the face of something threatening or dangerous. Whereas trait anxiety is an individual's disposition to experience anxiety, even though some individuals are more anxious than others. Pat has a bit of both trait anxieties stated here, as the threatening situations that he is facing is the coaches and the fact of not winning, as well as not letting his team down. By the look of the case study, he is anxious of what's going to happen during the game, whether it's anything to do with him or others around him. He also is a lot more anxious than anyone else on his own team when playing an actual game. The self-efficiency theory was found by a man called Bandura. The self-efficiency theory believes in one's capabilities to organise and execute the courses of actions required to produce given attainments. It is known to be a form of situation-specific self-confidence. Reading through Pat's case study, he only has high anxiety or issues when he's performing in the front of the coaches and crowd. Taking note of this, Pat doesn't have self-efficiency at all time when he's in the same situation each time. Self-efficiency theory is a critical component to what Bandura refers to as a social cognitive theory. To make efficiency develop and have an effect on a person, the individual must believe that they are in control of the situation they are confident in, so the acts of the individual performs are performed intentionally. The catastrophe theory is the last of three theories put together to measure or evaluate anxiety and performance. This theory shows that as arousal increases beyond an optimal level, performance drops rapidly and dramatically to lower levels. In Pat's case, his coach sees him differently to when he's performing in training to when he's playing a match in front of a crowd. This is two different emotions. When having to step up to performing properly, he almost freezes as he's mixing his own anxiety to the performance. This is why he does not perform to his best when it's time to be chosen. This model has three variables. These are psychological arousal, cognitive anxiety and performance. The catastrophe model predicts when cognitive anxiety is at a low, that the relationship between physical arousal and the performance follows the inverted U-curve. This means that the performance will be better under a moderate arousal conditions instead of at a high like Pat's. Application of psychological concepts. Self-talk is usually silent. For example, talking, encouraging, motivating yourself to do something well. You can do this by repeating the same statement so you start to believe that you can do something, or just to give you a boost during your performance. These statements that are usually used in sporting situations are: I am prepared and ready to succeed, I can do this, and keep going. These statements all encourage and motivate people to do their best. They are usually created by the athlete or their psychologist to get the best out of them. Therefore, when Pat gets into a game situation, he needs to remember that he can perform to his best and motivate himself to boost his confidence. Visualisation. Visualisation can be used to psych up or psych down the athlete. To psych up, the cognitive preparations are thought to arouse the athlete, which is an advantage in sport that use strength and cause physical exertion. It can also help to relax an athlete, also known as psyching down. This is where they visualise being somewhere where they are comfortable and a place where they can relax. For example, on the beach, where they can hear the waves crashing, or at home watching a film, whatever makes them relax. Pat can use visualisation during his football game, as he can visualise what he wants his performance to be like, which can help him calm his nerves, as he can picture himself playing well under pressure. Intervention. Imagery is defined as using all the human senses to recreate or create an experience in the human mind. This means that if an image can be created within the mind, in the absence of any external stimuli, an image could involve the one or all of the human senses. An image is also created from the information received by the sensory register. Working memory or a long-term memory. A person named Bloch in 1981 said that imagery is one of the most important topics of cognitive sciences. From this, two main theories have evolved. The first one says that we imagine a scene in our mind's eye. We are there scanning an actual image which is then formed in our brain. For Pat, this is standing in front of the coaches, trying to perform his best for the team's next game, but instead of being very successful, like he is when training, he fails. This image of failing is what is in Pat's mind, as he gets so anxious and nervous about the situation ahead. He imagines that he will fail again and won't make it onto the next team's game. This then makes him more anxious, nervous and upset. This then repeats as a cycle over and over in Pat's mind. The second main theory from imagery is descriptionist. This person argues that there is no existence of mental image. This is when the image is imagined as a physical scene. We do not see an internal image, we only see the graphic details of our human language. This makes it seem that we have an internal picture saved within our mind. Pat is more associated with the first theory. From looking through his case study in detail and analyse, we have found out that Pat's high anxiety is associated with his performance. This is where imagery then fits in, as he has all his build of negative concepts, theories and emotions. Pat then imagines the times he's failed. He starts imagining the negative points rather than thinking of the positive points. In addition to self-talk from the slide above, it can be used to develop self-confidence. This is because Pat is tactically and strategically playing well in training his confidence. Will grow and he will believe that he can perform the same during the game. However, as Pat is underperforming in front of the coaches, his confidence is hindered due to his nerves and is being substituted. Pat's self-confidence is having a negative effect on his performance. Therefore, he needs to motivate and encourage himself with thoughts and feelings he has during training. As his self-confidence is affecting his performance, during game situations he needs to replace the negative thoughts he is having with positive ones, such as, pass me the ball, I can make this pass. To improve Pat's performance, he needs to use 2 interventions to increase his self-confidence and performance levels. Self-talk is an effective cognitive technique that develops self-confidence and ultimately behaviour.